From dating to relationships, from sex to love, from Christianity to politics, from darkness to light, you have now entered into the real zone. Welcome to Conversations with Trent, where no topic of conversation is safe from discussion. Now, here he is, Mr. Epic himself, Trent Williams.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another conversation with Trent and friends, featuring the lovely Coach D. Good stuff. Good stuff. We got some Gumbo Talk here tonight. Gumbo Talk for tonight. We're talking about conversation on standards. The conversation on standards. What do you mean, Trent? Conversation on standards. I had a couple of conversations over the last couple of days with a good friend of mine. We were talking about standards, right? And I got to thinking about standards and men having standards after watching all these take a flight videos and all that stuff. These women shaking for likes or what have you. And I'm here to say it's okay for men to have standards. Sorry, ma'am, that's not for me. I'll scroll on. Let's get Coach D in here, get our thoughts on standards. Because as we all know, you can still have standards. Well, yeah, you can. So let's just say expectations. They can still have expectations, still be thottish. Let's get Coach D in there to talk about it. One sec. Coach D.
Hey there.
How are you? How are you? I figured we'd keep it light because you've been coaching all week.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with my camera. There's something weird going on there. I'm not sure what's happening.
I figured we keep it light tonight because you've been coaching all week. You've been doing a real good job.
I don't know. Standards is a light conversation, though, man.
Hey, well, we're gonna make it light. We're gonna make it light.
All
but
right.
I know you have a couple of tidbits. But hey, man, we've been getting some calls, some serious calls, some very pressing calls from folks wanting your services and some good stuff, man. Real good stuff. And we're glad to know that you're on the speed dial to help folks get through these things. So good stuff, man.
Yeah. So
kudos to you.
Yeah, I'm no problem connecting with people. I will put a contact sheet on my website. I do a lot of social justice work, which is why I didn't have one, because I was getting a lot of hate mail from white supremacists and neo-Nazis who obviously got nothing better to do on their time. I guess being the superior race gives you lots of free time. So they would email me a lot. But I'll do that up so people can contact me directly. That way they don't have to bother you all the time.
Because my phone was blowing. I was like, wait a minute. Hold on a second there.
Let me see.
That's good stuff. Real good stuff. So we're talking about standards, right?
Right.
And standards to the point of for male and female, right? And talking to a couple of brothers, and we got to talking about these TikTok videos and all these dancing trends with a lot of these different women doing their thing on, for likes and all that stuff. And sometimes that kind of gets kind of watered down, man, in the crazy of things. When you're talking about the internet and social media and these internet streets, it get kind of deep. But for me, where I'm at in the stage of my life, I have no interest in that, so I keep strolling. But for me, it's not for me. Personally, it's not for me anymore.
Well, it must be for you, because if TikTok is a great algorithm that tells you exactly who somebody is. Because if it shows up in your TikTok algorithm.
No, it doesn't go. It doesn't show up on TikTok. It shows up on Facebook. The reels on Facebook. I'm talking about the reels on Facebook. But TikTok, I rarely see anything on TikTok like that. Most of the stuff I get is like motivated stuff and
I don't see reels like that. Let me get to the comments and then we'll get into it.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
Martine's here. She says, "Yo, hey Martine, hey Shan." They're talking amongst themselves. Ursula jumped in. She said, "Friends and family, what's up?" And the ladies are just chatting amongst themselves.
What up, folks? What up, folks? Good to see you guys in it tonight. We're talking about standards. So for me, and it's okay for a male to say, "Hey, sorry, ma'am, it's not for me." That's not for me. And just keep on scrolling. You know what I'm saying? It's okay for a guy to have standards. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with a guy having the standards, and even though my checkered past, right? My checkered past, but at some point you grow into something greater. You should grow into something greater.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, that's not for me. So most of the conversation I had with the gentleman this week, they were saying, you know what, man, I'm really not turned on by that either. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So it's okay for guys to have standards. That's not judging anyone, but
here's the thing. Men think that everything women.
There we
go.
And
I'm going to generalize, so you and Slash can get mad right now. I don't really care. Men have a tendency to believe that what women are doing is for them. So a lot of people talk about twerking. Twerking actually comes from the motherland. It's an age-old dance.
I get it.
But here's the thing. Dance can just be, I love to dance, and dance can just be an expression. And it has nothing, if you don't want to watch people dance, don't watch people dance, but don't call people thoughts because they're dancing a certain way that you don't approve of. Because, sir, that is very prudish.
I just said thottish ways. That's all I said. Thottish ways.
What's a thottish way? We're not slut shaming, sir. That's not happening. Because you yourself was a thought. So
knock it off. And I say I have been, and I mean that's been me a ton of ages ago, a ton of years ago.
Let's talk about standards. So let's talk about preferences versus standards and expectations.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's get to it.
Preferences and standards are two different things. So I prefer somebody who's taller because I'm 5'8". However, I have a standard where they have to have a job. Exactly. That's there's no option.
Right. Well, so, let's be clear. Get a clear understanding of that. There's a clear distinction between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like wrong with having standards, but for standards, it's a norm of acceptance or what's unacceptable.
Right.
Standards like for me, for instance, it's unacceptable. Even with my checkered past, I'm not gonna date a certain type of woman. I'm just not. Right. But that's my standard. That's unacceptable to me. And I have that that's my thing to do. But go ahead.
So for me, like for a standard, I won't date anybody who doesn't take care of their kids.
Right.
Point. Right. So for me,
that's a standard, right?
Yeah, that is a standard. So it is a preference that if they have children, that they see them on a regular basis, or they live with them. Right. Single dad's not a problem.
Right.
Here's the thing. I don't have expectations of other people because if you have expectations that you have not communicated, you're not going to receive those.
Exactly.
Because expectations, so many times people have expectations, but they never communicate the expectation.
Exactly.
So, for instance, an expectation that's communicated, listen, I am doing X from this time to this time. When I get home, I will call you.
Exactly.
Don't call me prior to this because I'm at work or I'm at driving up my kids. I'm doing X or whatever. Right. Here's the thing. A lot of men that I've spoken with don't like it when women expect the same from them that they are putting out.
Exactly.
It's very hypocritical, per se.
Here's the thing where I think people get confused. It's male and female, right? Standards are really not specific to one person.
No.
That's just a healthy boundary.
Yeah.
It's a healthy boundary. Yeah. But most folks, if I say, hey, I thank you, but no thank you, that's not for me. Mm-hmm. That's not judging. I'm not sitting on a high panel of judges. That's just a healthy boundary for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Until you said thottish. Yeah. You can say that's not for me. And that is a standard. You say that thottish behavior is not for me, and you're judging.
I got you. Right? I got you. Yeah. I got you. But people need to understand that, standards, mm-hmm. That's a healthy boundary.
Yeah.
It's a healthy. Hey, you choose not to have that in your vortex.
Right.
It's okay. Hey, okay, let's move on.
And here's the thing: if you have standards, and you should understand that other people will have standards as well.
Absolutely.
And that I was on TikTok. I got to stay off TikTok because I swear to God, it just drives me crazy. So there's these group called the Passport Bros who don't want American Black women because we're too bossy and independent, blah, 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 blah. So now they're going outside the country to different countries so they can find submissive women, yada, 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 right? So I got into one guy on one guy because he told me that foreign women know how to treat their men. And I pointed out that he was specifically going for underdeveloped countries where women don't have access, where, say, European or North American women do.
I know a guy like that. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I know a guy who actually did that, which is one of my cousins.
Mm-hmm.
He travels a lot for work, and he used to be in Russia a ton.
Right.
Like over 15 years ago, he went to work for Deloitte and Touche for a ton. So I knew his background. I knew why he did what he did.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks were like, damn, I can't believe Tony did that. He went out and married a Russian, brought a Russian back. But Tony wasn't pretty popular with the females, especially, of his own kind. So he got with a Russian, brought a Russian over, but, and he runs that situation like an iron fist. But I know him personally. I know exactly who he is. And
yeah. But I had to laugh at him because I'm like, and I basically told him exactly why he's doing that.
Right.
And he's like agreed with me, not realizing that everything he was agreeing with was like not a good character trait.
Right.
And then he's like, well, you wouldn't understand because you American women don't understand anything. I'm like, I was born in America. I wasn't raised in America. So I don't know what you're talking about when it comes to that.
Right.
But it's interesting because their standard was basically a doormat who could be abused, manipulated.
Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Dee said it. I didn't. So Tony, don't send me any hate mail.
No, but here's the thing. Here's why I said, and I don't mean nothing against the women. The women are absolutely lovely, beautiful, kind. Most of them are the most amazing souls. But they're put in a situation where monetarily,
I totally agree.
They get into a better situation with this person so they can help their families. I understand the why behind on the women's side. Unfortunately, they end up with a lot of time in very abusive relationships. They're financially controlled because the person often has control over their passport or green card or anything like that. So it's a bad situation. I hate seeing some of them in because some of them look so miserable when you look at them.
Exactly.
Right. So let me get into.
I got a question. Go ahead, take the comments. I got a question after that.
Okay, let me go back. Slash joined us.
What up, Slash?
Okay, we're skipping that. Alvin joined us. Say, hey, my sister. Martine says, right on. I don't want to date a man who doesn't take care of himself. Things that may be considered not significant, such as grooming themselves, hair, teeth, clean shoes. And Shan says, absolute Martine, grooming and good hygiene are a must. There's a comment I have to tell you about that threw me for a complete loop. And Martine says, and yes, there's guys who say they prefer exotic women. A guy I know got a mail order bride, and after about 10 years, she was miserable. He wasn't doing well himself. Had her living off. I can't see that last part because there's a. Can you pull up Martine's comment? There we go. Have a living off of Gratio and Holcomb. I don't know what that is. Is that streets?
Yeah, are you talking about here?
Had her living off of Gratio and Holcomb. Is that a corner, Martine?
Holcomb. I think she's talking about she said Holcomb or Holcomb?
Holcomb, Holcomb.
Not for me.
Okay. I have a mild understanding of Atlanta. So Kimberly joined us. Oh, she said on the east side.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. All right. What was the question?
I didn't see the question.
No, you had a question.
Oh, my question is, one sec. Let's get to it. So, why is having high standards in a relationship important?
Why is having high standards?
Yeah, why is it important?
It's not even about the being high standards, just standards, period. Because what happens is,
well, I mean, the reason why I phrased it like that, right? When I was doing the research, the reason why I phrased it like that, because most get offended by you having certain standards. If they're not up to that level of standard, they're going to take offense to it, which is just the norm for the regular person who has standards.
Yeah. You know me, I always say date within your budget.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah. So here's the thing. With standards, everybody should have them because they set a firm boundary of what is a go, no go. What are deals, no deals. I don't date smokers.
Right.
That's a standard, right?
That's
It's not a preference.
correct.
So the difference between a preference and a standard is a preference would be, oh, that's a really cool person. I would date them and I would overlook the smoking.
Right.
I am not overlooking smoking. That's
exactly
not happening. So
I jotted down a couple of tidbits for folks when we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about high standards and whatnot and all this stuff. First of all, respect someone's opinion, feeling, needs, beliefs, and desires.
Right.
You have to. You have to respect them. You have to. Number two is shared values, ethics, morals, even a philosophy. Even a philosophy. You got to respect that. That's respecting a person's beliefs and what they believe in.
Right.
That doesn't mean that they're prejudging you. Again, like I said in the beginning, that's not a person, not for a person. It's just the way their belief system, their healthy belief system. This is where my boundary is, and this is where it's going to stay.
Yeah, and I think where a lot of people get mixed up here is agreeing to disagree about things.
Exactly.
So you can agree to disagree about which color white is the best on walls, but you can't agree to disagree on whether Black Lives Matter or whether Jewish lives matter, or because there are moral standards where you can't sit on the fence.
Here's where I broke a whole bunch of standards right back in the day. Women's standards, I broke them all. Mm-hmm. Barreled down their boundaries and everything. Non-transparency, not trustworthy, not honest. Did all the wrong things. Mm-hmm. I broke down all kind of barriers, doing the wrong things. But as I acquired the tools over the years, I learned to, hey, you know what? I gotta respect that.
Right.
I want to be treated. I'm gonna treat them like they, like I want to be treated. Period.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and here's the thing, but don't expect them to treat you the same way without communicating.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's don't expect. There's a saying that says, "Don't expect you from other people."
Exactly.
So if you think you would respond in a certain way, don't expect other people to respond that way, because chances are they probably won't, because they're not you.
And this is what we get down to, the healthy conflict, right?
Right.
So there's healthy conflict. There's also healthy conflict that, in relationships, if it's healthy, you can move on in a positive manner.
Yeah, like you can disagree about who's the best author or what's the best TV show. Those are healthy conflicts.
Exactly.
But if you're on opposite ends of the political spectrum,
that's not going to come out so healthy.
It's not as healthy.
Yeah, it's not going to come out so healthy.
Yeah, and I see people will overlook things for a while, but it eats at them, and they will complain to everybody about their spouse. And here's the thing: if you are in a situation where you're on one part of the political spectrum and your spouse is on another, and you go to dinner, and everybody's like, "You're on the Democratic plantation," or "You need to be a free thinker," and blah blah blah. That's only going to cause animosity between the two of you, because you're going to argue about it. So there's things that are healthy conflict and conflict that you need to look at closer to see if that is as healthy as you think it really is.
Exactly. And another thing is, okay to have a long list of standards. Mm-hmm. For me personally, I have 21 of them. Personally, I have 21 of them. But it's okay to have that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's your healthy boundary. That's it. 21 questions, that's my healthy boundary. Mm-hmm. We'll stick at that. It's not saying that I'm sitting on a high judge panel, a high panel of judges. This is where this is a no for me. There's nothing wrong with me having a list of it. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, there isn't anything wrong with having a list up, but sometimes we use those lists as walls.
That's true. I could agree with that.
Versus being an actual standard. That's what it's people put up these faux walls to stop other people from coming close.
I could agree with that.
So we should look closer at that list, sir, and see what those.
My list is good, and we're not coaching me tonight, Coach.
We're always coaching, sir. Always.
We're not coaching me.
Back to the comments. Martine said, "In the hood, she left the children with him and went back to her country. Good for her. The standards are for individual protection, in my opinion. Yeah, that's right, Shan." And Martine says, "Nope, but don't like cigarettes at all. I need for me and my dude to be on the same path as far as spiritual beliefs and politics."
What's going on, Shannon? I see you.
Yeah. So here's the thing. You don't necessarily have to be on the same path, but you have to be on the same moral ethic ground.
Exactly.
Because I know people who date who one person is very religious and the other person isn't, but they agree that they are both spiritual. So that person goes to church on Sunday, the other person meditates. So they both have their standards on what is allowable.
Right.
Because the person who goes to church says even though they don't go to church, they still consider them to be evenly yoked.
Right.
So, what works for one may not work for another. So for some people, not going to church may be a deal breaker. And
here's where we get in trouble. And most times, sorry to say it, folks, women get in trouble with this one, where is the worst case scenario. You have high expectations on a guy that do not hold up to your standards.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst case scenario. In some cases, I've seen men do that as well. I've done that in my past. High expectation on this woman. She did not hold up to my standards.
Yeah.
But I was looking at the physical aspect of things with that.
Well, that's why I tell people you don't build a man. A man has to build himself. Because you're not his mother.
Exactly.
Because what will happen is you'll build him, and then when he no longer needs anything to be built, he will go elsewhere.
So I got a call once I wrote it up, and they were talking about expectations versus standards and all this and whatnot. That was the whole point to this. Like, you could have high expectation of me, but I might not meet your standards.
Right.
There's a difference.
But here's the thing. Once you've established what your standards are, then you can tell the person what your expectations are.
Exactly.
But then that's the part that gets dropped a lot of time is the communication of the expectations.
Because I was that guy years ago. Romello was that guy. They had high expectations of him because, the life he lived, but he was poor on standards. He broke every rule, tore down every boundary, everything. So, having high expectations of him was horrible.
Well, here's the thing. If somebody refuses to respect your standards or boundaries, that's a huge red flag.
Exactly.
Walk away as soon as you see that one, walk away. It doesn't matter how great they are. If they won't respect your boundaries at the beginning, they're not going to respect them later on.
Exactly. And this is for the viewers. This is strictly for the viewers here. This is where we have rose-colored glasses when we're dealing with folks or we're infatuated with folks.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I can speak on that because I was infatuated a ton with different women throughout my life. I wore rose-colored glasses. And I'm more than sure when they dealt with me, they had rose-colored glasses. They were blind to the fact.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. Yeah, when you're emotionally connected to that person, you ignore all the red flags. But then once you're not emotionally connected to them anymore, then you see all the red flags that were there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
why they going in on these comments?
My comments haven't loaded. No, I don't. My end, they're quiet, which is strange for them. Let me see.
Oh, they're in there. I see the numbers growing. They're there. So.
I'm going to refresh. I hope I don't lose the screen.
Yeah, she lost. She'll be back in a second, folks. She'll be back in a sec. tried to refresh. But good stuff, man. We'll take a real quick break. Oh no, she's back. One second.
Back.
Gotcha. That was quick.
Yeah, I didn't know if refreshing would not, but yeah, we were at the followed all the comments because the last comment I had was Martine said I need for me and my dude to be in the same page path as far as spiritual beliefs and politics. We covered that.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, now she answers a question. So answer me this. Can you pull it up?
Shoot.
So answer me this. If two people really like each other, they're not take each other call from time to time, not be as available on a daily. So here's the thing. Not be available on a daily basis. So the level of communication is a standard. If you require X amount of calls per day, X amount of calls per week, something like that. If you don't require somebody to get in touch with you every day, then that's your standard.
Here's the thing, and I would have to let me intervene here for a 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the call thing, I'm kind of horrible on the calling thing. So, for me, I mean, yeah, I would agree that's your standard, but me personally, I don't have to talk to you every day.
Yeah. And
I don't have
different
to.
people,
Yeah, that's kind of over the top, in
different
my
people have
opinion.
different things. Here's the thing. Here's the other extreme for this. If you have to talk to somebody all day, every day, that's a codependent relationship, and that's too much
Do
communication,
tell and dig a little deeper.
right? Because there's some if you have to have that conversation all day, there's something going on. If you need to talk to them and text to them all day through the
Yeah,
day,
right.
there's something going on that you have to take a look at. So,
Right.
but here's the thing: everybody has different levels of communication.
Right.
Some people need to talk a couple of times a day. Some people need to talk 20 times a day. You know, some people talk every other day. Some people talk 3 times a
Right.
week. It just depends on what their communication style is. There's no right or wrong unless it's to an excess. Then it's something that you need to look at, right?
I agree.
And Martine says if you're in a serious dating mode, it's your communication style is your communication style.
What's going on, Kathy, out of North Carolina? I see you.
Yeah, and Kathy says, I believe people often confuse the two. Expectations should be established upfront. Standards are morals. I believe those are worth communicating as well. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You have to communicate your standards and your expectations. If you don't, then one, the other person doesn't know what the expectations are. So if you
Absolutely.
expect a good morning text that says good morning and your name, and you don't establish that, don't get upset when you get a WYM or what was it, WYD, right? Because
Right.
that's what their standard is. So it's all about communication. You have to talk about it, and here's the thing: you have to be open and transparent, right?
Right.
And you can't lie by omission. Like if somebody asks you a question, give them the information that they're asking. Because
Right.
eventually, if you're lying by omission, they will lose trust in you because they don't trust what you're saying. Because they know you're only giving part of the information.
So, what are your thoughts on simple patterns for following for a healthy expectations? Just a
Just
simple
talk.
pattern.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Have a conversation about it.
Exactly.
Know what you expected, and you should know what the other person expects as well.
Exactly. And that's
Right?
as simple as having a conversation about that.
Mm-hmm.
Without getting all crazy about it. It could be a healthy exchange when you're talking about just a simple pattern. If you
Yeah.
require certain things, just speak on it.
Right.
And it's my duty to say yay or nay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we could rock with this. If not, let's move on.
Yeah. Like I'm like texting. I am really bad. I will read the message, but if I'm doing something, I'm not going to reply right away, depending on what I'm doing.
I'm terrible with that. I'm always getting calls saying, "Hey, I know you saw my text because I saw you read it." I have like Kennedy. Kennedy always used to set up my settings on the iPhone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when she went back to her mother's, I had nobody to come in and set this thing up for me, right? So it's been a couple of years, but I got to figure out how to do that so that people won't see me. I read the text, but I really don't want to respond. I really don't want
Yeah.
to talk about it. But I get calls all the time. You read the message. Why you didn't text back? That's so annoying to me.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm in the middle of a nap. I mean, come on.
Well, I think a lot of people, because society has become so instant gratification, that as soon as somebody sees,
they want it instant.
Yeah. But I tell people, don't expect me to reply instantly if I'm doing something else, because 9 times out of 10, I can't chew gum and walk at the same time because I'm klutzy. So if I'm in a conversation with somebody, I'm not answering my texts.
Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Dee has actually responded to a text 24 hours later on a regular.
Yeah. I've done it to you on a regular basis.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I will get back to you eventually. Just don't expect it right away.
But you've always been that way.
Yeah, always. Since I'll tell you up front. Don't expect it right away. If you get it right away, that means I had my phone, I had time.
Exactly.
But it's not a game either, which is why I'm going to read Martine's comment. It says, a lot of women I know say they ignore calls purposely in order to make the guy work harder to show interest. I need a man sweating me, but I need attention. Indeed.
Tell her dig a little deep on.
She needs me. I just need him to be attentive. Yeah.
She said don't. She said don't.
I don't need a man sweating me. I just need him to be attentive.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, don't play games with people. That's
because 9 times out of 10, if you're playing games with the guy, it's not going to end well for you.
No,
I'm just going to be honest with you. It won't end well for you.
Yeah, especially
if you got to do the whole. Well, I'm not going to text or call and wait to see what he's going to do. Well, maybe Trent's off doing another thing with someone else.
Yeah, because chances are, if they see you out and they see you, like if you go out somewhere and they see that you respond to text immediately, but you're ignoring their text.
Right.
People are a lot more habitual than they realize. Most human behavior is predictable. Even people who are spontaneous are predictable.
Mm-hmm.
Because we thrive on pattern and discipline. So we do the same thing again. That's why we even have a saying about doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. Because that's humans to do things over and over again. Yeah. So don't play games with people. Oh my God, don't, Lord. Yeah, don't if you want
the game thing. The games don't work. The games really don't work. So playing the game, trying to figure out if Trent gonna call you. If you go mute for 24 hours, Trent might go mute for a lifetime.
Yeah,
we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want people to do it with you. Don't do it with others. That's just
absolutely.
Set the expectation of how many phone calls you like. Then the person knows straight up front. I expect a phone call at least once a day, at least twice a day.
That's right.
If I'm leaving you, I expect you to check on, make sure I got home safely.
That's right.
That kind of thing. So if you don't do that, don't expect them to call you to see you've got home safely, because not everybody will.
So here's the thing, right? Let's talk about men and standards.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about men with standards, right? So if a guy chooses not to have a woman in his life, to be involved with a woman in his life who've had multiple partners, that's his prerogative. Mm-hmm. Even with a checkered past, I mean, like I said in the beginning of the broadcast, people change. But if a guy chooses not to have a female who's had an extensive list,
what's an extensive list?
Body count.
What's
a high body count?
What's a high body count?
Let's say over 5.
Over 5? At what age? At what age?
Let's just say over 5, right?
At what age, though? Because 5 at 22 and 5 at 60 are two totally different numbers.
I totally agree with that. That's funny, and I didn't expect you to come with that answer, that question.
You should have expected that question.
I'd say at 25, like for me personally, I'm not talking about me. Let's clear this up right now. So I'm not talking about me. But the average guy is going to have trouble with a body count of over 5.
Didn't we have this conversation the other day and we found out it was 14 was the number?
We're circling back with it. But go ahead.
But 14 was the number that most surveys found.
Exactly. I totally agree. But it's okay for a guy to have that type of standard. It's okay. It's not, and it's not a judging thing. That's just his preference. That's just
Yeah.
what.
But he on the same note better not get upset if that woman says, "Well, you better only have
And
to have 2."
I totally agree. And this is where
Yeah.
the guys will get upset with me as well. This is where you have to have a little grace.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me on for me, I have a little grace with that body count thing.
Yeah. For
Because I
me,
don't even, it's not even on the table for discussion with me and my prospective partner. It's not on the table at all. Because I
no, I
have a
think
checkered past with that.
I don't have a checker pass. I just think the number is very
Yeah, but
it's
always, I mean,
pointless.
I think that you should naturally give people grace. When
Yeah.
you've moved into a higher level of life, you should actually always remember that, hey, you came from somewhere. You got to
But
give them a
why are
little
you
grace.
asking anyway? Really, what difference does it
Exactly.
make?
You got to give them a little grace.
Yeah. Um, Martine says, one second. A guy told me that he peeped how my sister friend did him like that. He cut her off cold, and she had the nerve to be upset. Yeah, I don't get the whole make him chase me. If he was
Yeah, I don't
interested,
get that.
you would know he was interested.
Exactly. So if a guy, and I've seen this in a number of cases, right? Even in personal cases, where I know you want me, I know you do,
Hmm.
but you're gonna act like you don't. You're gonna play that whole lioness thing, like you're not interested and you're nonchalant. But being nonchalant with the guy of interest is dangerous.
Yeah,
Say what you want, say what you need, and let's move forward. If not, let's go our separate ways.
yeah. There,
There's no
I'm
need
trying to.
for a game.
Yeah, there's games. This is the biggest issue I have in most of the relationship groups I'm in. Games do absolutely nothing when you're an adult
Totally agree.
because here's the thing: people have expectations and standards, and then if you are playing the games with them, you're not setting your own standards. You're not following your own boundaries,
One more
right?
time for the people in the back.
Because you're not being honest with yourself. Like you saying, I want him to call me 4 or 5 times a week, but then you ignore 3 of his calls to make him chase you more.
Now
Hello?
we're talking. Now we're talking. Now we're getting
Right?
to the meat and potatoes.
It's like, dude, that's why you're sitting at Saturday night with the girls because the guy who was interested you ignored. And then
Exactly.
people be like, well, Dee, if he's really interested, he would chase me. I'm like, this ain't the Sahara. You're not a gazelle. This is not how humans work. It's
You and
not how
Shannon,
humans.
you're not gonna like this, but this is where we talk about the Disney princess. And with scenarios like that, right? That
Mhm.
whole chase me, climb up the castle wall and get me.
Oh yeah, Disney
A fairy
ruined.
tale, man.
Yeah, Disney in the 50s and all these scenarios you see on TV are not
Exactly.
realistic. Most of the
Exactly.
reality shows are scripted, so even the drama is fake. Um, but you know what? It's all about honesty and openness,
Exactly.
right?
Can you
Yeah.
imagine how many people have actually walked past their forever by stubbornness and saying, "Well, if he's not gonna pull the trigger first, oh well, I'm not gonna do it either."
Hmm.
Or if
I
she's not gonna pull the trigger first, I'm not gonna do it either. Can you imagine how
I
many people got walked past?
listen. I was dating a guy in Toronto. Absolutely adored him. Amazing, amazing person. We got along amazingly. The only thing we disagreed about was football teams.
Right.
Anyway, so he would never like. I'm like, well, what are we doing? We gonna where are we going? What's going on here? So I need to know because I am planning life things and I need to know what the situation is.
Exactly. So you were
And
straightforward like that. You just straight down the middle.
sir, have I ever not been?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
So did all this had this conversation, and I said, okay, you know what? We're gonna end this because I don't know what's going on. I can't live on a limb. Blah 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 blah. Like 4 months later, he sends me a message. He's like, "So you just like leave the country?" I'm like, "Sir,
But
actually,
you know what?
8 months. It was 8 months later. That's how it was 8 months because I just remember the date because it was like October. But I left in February. But we had broken up like a year prior.
But here's the thing, though, and I gotta side with the guy a little bit, just a little bit, because I spoke with you one day. You were still in Toronto, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing I know, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to Maryland." I'm like, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew of Kevin. I knew, you guys were pretty close, or whatever. But I'm like, "Huh?" I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
okay."
Because I have strict boundaries when I'm within the relationship. I don't share outside that relationship with other people. So there's some information I would keep to myself. But here's the thing: I was talking to a friend, and she was talking to this gentleman, thought the world of him, and he told her once, what was it? He didn't think he was her preference. That he wasn't what she preferred in men.
Right.
And she told him, she goes, no, at this point, we are good friends, but I am married. So it cannot be anything else other than friendship.
Right.
And he got upset with her. And I'm like, sir.
And you know why? You know why? Because when some men
Mm-hmm.
will go into those type of friendships with people who are already married, right?
Mm-hmm.
Women who are already married. And they say, oh, yeah, we're just friends, we're friends. But in the back of his mind, he's saying to himself, it'll slip up, I'm sliding in.
Yeah, and that's exactly what that was.
That's the average man. They go in with a bad thing, man. They go in with that instead of just being honest and tell her exactly what you want.
Yeah.
If you want to, let her know, tell her you want her, and give her the right. She has the right of way to say, you know what, hey, this is not for me. We can't be friends.
Yeah, that's not my thing. I don't do that. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then he got his feelings hurt. I'm like, sir.
Well, to me, he hurt his own feelings like that, going in thinking that he could change a married woman's mind. You can't do that.
Well, some people are never going to accept responsibility for things that they've done.
Exactly.
They got to blame the other person. So let me go back to the comments. Slash said a checkered past is one that involves periods of times that were good and periods of times that were bad. Yeah, our passes are past. Everybody has them. We all have baggage.
That's true.
It's just a matter of how you carry it. Martine said that same friend always told me that I made myself too available for my guy friend. He called earlier in the week to plan for us to be together. Okay. I don't know if too available is that you're always available, or because I don't think there's such a thing as.
So she said the guy said that she was too available.
Her friend said that she was too available. The ones who play games.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
that's crazy, man. I don't know why women do that.
Yeah,
there's no such thing as too available.
Yeah. Slash says the emphasis is usually on the disreputable or negative things that the person participated in. Someone who is labeled as having a checkered past is considered fairly untrustworthy.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of judgment based on people. That's why I tell people, if you're asking a body count, why are you asking that?
Right.
What are you getting out of it? Because it's really the past. You were not involved with them. They were not involved with you. What is done is done. Martine says, plus he picked me up and brought me to the event. He and I were together. Games are stupid, period. My guy friends who are like brothers to me, most of them are married, are very protective of me and won't let certain dudes talk to me. And then they fill me in on the facts and then thankful. And if a guy's try to play me, then attempts to apologize, it's a no. She says she's single still. Yeah. Right. So here's the thing. Most of the male friends I have are mostly ex-army buddies. Right. Who are like entirely too many big brothers that no girl ever wanted to have. So we would go out. And I remember back, I think it was 20 or so, we went to the local bar downtown, and my neighbor who lived down the street from my parents was a year away from finishing dental school. And he came over and asked me to dance. And like 8 of them circled around him and said, no, she's not dancing with you. And meanwhile, I'm like, no, you do not know who he is. Like, y'all are they're just wrecking things right now.
Right.
Right? So it's good to have those big brothers, but at the same time, they have to have expectations of their behavior as well. It has to be communicated with them, and they need to listen to that. Because there's a lot of people out there that when you set your standards and expectations with them, they may not fit your preference, but after conversations, you may find that your preference was off to begin with. Like people say opposites attract, or you'll see some people and you're like, why are they together? That match doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. Until you talk to the two of them together and you're like, oh, that makes sense now that I talk to them.
Right. You're right. But you know what though? When you think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of us kind of share the same standards. The same standards at some point. We do. If we're on the right track. The majority of us do. We share the same standards. It's just about communicating it properly. That's all.
I don't know if we share the same standards. Our morals and ethics may be very similar.
Yeah, I see.
So it may look on a quick glance that they're the same, but there be nuances.
Here's the difference for me, right?
Right.
Let's dig a little deeper into this real quick. As far as standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say I'm in a room, my girl's in a room, and I have a friend who's actually in that room. I know him. I know if I leave the room, he's gonna get in on the action. I know that. And I'm saying this because you have to be mindful of who you surround yourselves with. You have to know your circle at all times.
Right.
You have to. You can't place yourself in a situation like that, a catch-22. You shouldn't have to feel reluctant to leave the room with your girl and your friends, quote unquote, in a room with her.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people not gonna meet up to your standard. I say that very lightly, and I tread lightly with that. I do say most people have the same amount of standards, but it's kind of sketchy at times. But
Well, there's some trust there as well.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I agree with that.
So that friend doesn't sound like they are trustworthy and don't respect boundaries, and they
That's
wouldn't
where
be
we're
my
going.
friend.
That's where
Right?
we're going. So that's why
So
we have to be mindful of the circles we keep.
yeah. Well, the saying is that you are the five closest people to you.
Pretty much.
So if you look at the five closest people to you, if you're surrounded by drama, the common denominator is you. So you have to take a look at who it is in your circle that you're spending a lot of
Absolutely.
time with.
Absolutely.
If they can't be trustworthy, why do you surround yourself with people who can't be trustworthy?
Absolutely.
Right? What's the issue going on? And then once you sit down and take a look at your friends, we outgrow friends, and it's okay to outgrow people.
One more time for the people in the back.
Yeah. It's okay to outgrow people. Normalize dropping toxic people from your life. You can have a conversation with them. You don't have to ghost them. Just tell them, you know what? I don't think this friendship works for me anymore.
Exactly.
And
Here's the
just let.
difference, right, folks? And I had a conversation with my brother earlier about almost slightly about a conversation like that, about the
Hmm,
people we surround ourselves with, right? The moment we become successful in whatever level we call ourselves successful, and I'm
right,
not speaking on monetary thing, anything like that. Like for me personally, I'm at a
hmm,
level of success in my life at this moment. I'm at a
right,
higher level of myself. That's very successful. I'm very successful with that. And most people start to look at you slight differently, right? So
right,
they start to prejudge you. So I was having a conversation with my brother, and one of his friends was telling me, he said, yeah, Trent don't come around no more. He was like, nah, Trent, he's a little different now. But my brother didn't say it in a negative way. He was
right,
just letting him know, like, don't come at him with no bullshit because you're not gonna see it.
right.
He's not gonna deal with it.
Yeah,
So why do people always figure that it's a negative when you progress morally and mentally and you're moving into another realm in life. Most people look at that as a negative when it's actually a positive.
Because people don't like change.
Bingo.
And it puts them into an uncomfortable spot where they see other people growing and they're not.
Bingo.
So let me go back to the comments for a second. Because Martine says it's very difficult for me to accept apologies from people. Once a person nuts up on me on any level, and she hasn't read. I finished it. So here's the problem with apologies. Most people don't know how to apologize.
Absolutely.
So if your apology is, "I'm sorry you were offended," or "I'm sorry you thought that way," that's not an apology. The apology should never have an if in it, for one. It should have accepting responsibility. "I am sorry I offended you.
That's right.
I will do my best not to do blah, 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 blah." So you have to
I tell you something so funny,
take
right?
responsibility and then make amends to what you did.
I tell you what's so funny. It's funny that you bring up apologies, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had that dinner a couple of Sundays ago with my brother, and it's well documented that we've had issues in the past.
Right.
But the reason why I was so open to having dinner with him and spending time with him, he came and he was just completely open and transparent with me.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at him like that. I didn't even see him the same when he was talking to me, right?
Right.
It's like, damn, I see his light. Like it was a totally different light. And that opened me up. It opened me up to have a conversation, have a very transparent. So he opened up. I was able to open up as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was smooth sailing from there. I was like, wow. But it was a genuine apology from him. And it opened me up. I totally get it.
Yeah. People
Totally
respond and respect authenticity and transparency.
Totally get it.
If you are who you say you are and like you walk the walk that you talk the talk, people will respect that. That's who you are.
Exactly. And at this point, here's the thing. The old Trent
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have even taken a call, would have ignored the doorbell, everything. But the 2.0 Trent was very open because I saw his transparency. I was like, wow. I was so open to it but the old person, he knew that and when he said it, he's like, man, I didn't know if he was going to take my call or I didn't know if he was going to get offended if I just came over.
Right.
So I was kind of blown away by it. I was like, what do you mean get offended? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But he showed me myself in a very loving way. Like I was very standoffish. And I was like, you know what? Let's have that dinner. Let's have that conversation.
Right.
You being completely transparent with me, let's just open it up. And it was smooth sailing, man. Very smooth sailing. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
I get
when you're open to other people, people see it and they can feel it.
Exactly.
And people understand when they're being BS'd or being lied to or somebody's trying to pull out the wool over your eyes, because humans can feel the energy of other people. Right?
Exactly.
A lot of people don't realize that they can, but it is like when you feel,
and this is where
people say something feels off. That's what it is.
This is for the viewers. This is strictly for the viewers. This is where you have to be very receptive when people are actually giving you an honest apology. When people are actually genuinely coming to you. You have to be open to that apology. You have to be open to that transparency.
Yeah.
If you're not open to it, don't play with it. But you have to be. You have to be at a certain level in life to actually be open to accept that apology.
Yeah.
You have to be open. You have to be at a certain level in life to actually accept that transparency. So you could actually mirror it.
And if you're not accepting the apology, communicate why not.
Exactly.
Like if it doesn't feel authentic, tell them it doesn't feel authentic. Tell
Communicate
them
in a healthy way, by the way.
If you don't feel that they've learned from it, explain why. Right? Because your feelings and emotions are valid as well. So
exactly.
make sure that.
And I still think that you could still get some positivity and good energy out of a situation like that when you don't accept the apology right away. You could walk them into the apology and have a genuine conversation.
Yeah, nobody's required to accept an apology. Sometimes people will use apologies to manipulate. So nobody's ever forced to accept an apology. If you accept an apology, then fine, accept it and be honest about why you're accepting the apology. If you don't, be honest about that as well.
Exactly.
But never force somebody to accept an apology that you're giving, and don't complain if they don't want to accept it. That is their choice.
That's a good tidbit. Real good tidbit. Slash says.
Oh, Slash, can you bring it up? Standard, a level of quality or attainment, an idea or thing used as a measure, norm, or model in comparative evaluations. Let's keep it at 100. Women are allowed to have standards and expectations. Sir, you're an hour late.
I think he's busy tonight at work. I think
he's busy.
But
and
I totally agree with that, though. I totally agree with
it is. Yeah, we agreed that everybody is allowed to have standards. Everybody should have standards. Standards and boundaries, expectations that are communicated, and preferences. Nothing wrong with preference. Martine says, yes, I'll explain why when it's worth it. Okay. But yeah, so here's the thing. Communicate. Make sure they know what your standards and preferences are. Not so much the preferences, but the standards. Make sure, for one, you do communicate your expectations.
Exactly.
Right? If you don't communicate the expectations, you can't expect somebody to be able to fulfill what they don't know. No human is a mind reader that I've heard of yet out there in the dating world. And the dating world is hard enough as it is without communicating your needs and wants.
Exactly.
So
let's get to the teachable moments. 2 minutes to the hour. This is good stuff. A couple announcements real quick, man. Mm-hmm. We really appreciate this thing is actually moving. Conversation is moving. It's completely back, and when in the swing of things, it's real good on all platforms. And Dee and I truly appreciate you guys actually honing into this conversation, and how I know it's serious for you guys. Some of you guys are actually calling for the help. Mm-hmm. That means a lot to me because I was very uncertain and unsure that I was going to get these folks coming back. And, over the years, I had amassed over 100,000 viewers.
Right.
And I was kind of skeptical about coming back in this condition, but that moves me that I'm getting personal calls saying, hey, can you connect me with Coach Dee? Can you connect me with this? And that means a lot to me. And I really appreciate every single one of you from everywhere. I really appreciate you guys, man, from Georgia to the Carolinas to Haiti, all that stuff, man. We really appreciate it, and it does my heart good. I really appreciate you guys.
I always tell people you don't realize the impact that you have the vast majority of the time until after you've made it. And most of the time, we never know during our lifetime the impact we've made on others. I've had,
and I'd be remiss not to thank Tammy Gator, who actually walked me through that process, and she was telling me, you need to do this again because, you stop short and you drop a whole bunch of people, and they need to know that, you're back and you're doing well. Yeah. And I was kind of reluctant, man, because of the condition, but she talked me into it. And I really appreciate that, man. I really appreciate you, Dee. I really appreciate that. It makes me feel good that folks are actually tuning back in. So it's a good thing.
Oh, we'll get back to 100,000, no problem. I got to pay for plane tickets to Canada.
Exactly. Well, actually, for the young prince, he said that measly 12,000. We got to pick it up. So,
yeah.
Can you share with the viewers? Can you share with the viewers what he said, please?
Xavier has two parents that are life coaches, so he has listened to a lot of self-development over since he was a baby. So I told Xavier that we had 12,000 viewers, and Xavier looked at me with his little, shouldn't there be a few more zeros on there, mommy? I was like, all right, little man, all right, we're working on it. So,
but I had to tell, I love Xavier's personality.
Listen,
I love it. I mean, he's very engaging, and I love that, man. I love that about him. He's honest. So, I mean, it's like, hey, 12 is good. Should be a couple more zeros.
He's a future coach because when he was at the playground, he would encourage other kids on, like, you can do that, you can climb up there, you're doing great. And other parents be like, what the heck? I'm like, listen, man.
Exactly.
He's a good kid. He's expensive. He has expensive taste, but he's a good kid. He's like his mama. He's bougie.
That's funny. So my teachable moment.
Mm-hmm.
My teachable moment for standards, right?
Right.
Standards should be a steady compass. You're a very steady compass.
Right.
Your standards should be a very personal set of norms.
Mm-hmm.
Again.
Yeah. So I have great. I'm going to do the comments and then I'll do my teachable moment
for you. And it's not standards does not mean that. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, finish it up. Because I have some comments to read first, and then I'll do mine.
Okay, got you. So again, standards should be like a steady compass for you, and your standards are a personal set of norms.
Mm-hmm.
All the way, it's normal, completely normal to have standards, and as long as you're not sitting on that high panel of judges, you're good.
Right.
But it always should be in a healthy manner when you actually set your standards out and when you set your boundaries up. Everything should be in a healthy manner.
Good.
There's nothing wrong with standards.
No, there is nothing wrong with standards or boundaries. Martine says, teachable moment for me is to be honest and open, even if it scares you a little bit. Also speak with care. Remember that humans have hearts. Slash says, men, not so much. It's frowned upon in the world if a man seeks a woman with real hair, no cake up without tattoos included across her chest. He's looked at as being weird. Sir, you're hanging in the wrong group if you think that's true. That's not true at all. And truth without grace is just being mean. That's true. So my teachable moment is communicate what your standards and expectations are. Mm-hmm. Communicate your boundaries. And don't let people cross them or disregard them. That is what will get you into trouble every single time if you allow people to disregard your boundaries. Right. And Slash says, I don't believe in apologies, not judging them. Folks do what they think they can get away with.
That's true.
Maybe we should have a conversation about apologies and forgiveness.
Hey, you know what? That'd be great. That'd be great for Sunday.
Because most people, it's not what most people think it is. Let's do that on Sunday, the Lord's Day. We'll talk about forgiveness.
Hey, you know what? Stop.
Anyway, I'm tired. I'm getting silly now.
So we'll do it on apologies, man. We'll do it on apologies.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll I have to go get little man in bed. He's got strings in the morning. Violin class.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, as always, folks, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning into the B2G Unity Network. As you D's meditation, all that stuff on demand at b2gunitytv.com under the on demand watch now.
Yeah, share with your friends. Xavier expects more zeros.
Yeah, he's looking for a couple more zeros. He's looking for a few more zeros, not a couple. He's looking for this guy highest expectations here.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks. You guys be epic.
Conversations with Trent in conjunction with Taylor Kennedy Media and your radio network would like to thank you for calling in and listening to tonight's episode. We hope that tonight's conversation offended you just enough to turn your mirror inward to come back for more. So until next week's conversation, be epic.